Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's finally time. Back in 2018, we recorded a versus Halloween 2 versus Friday the 13th Part 2, and we chickened out. We ended in a tie. We were too nice. Today that all ends. That all changes. We're having a definite winner today. We're gonna duke it out. We're gonna make it happen. Today on versus, it's a rematch. Halloween 2 versus Friday the 13th Part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And joining us once again is Kenny, the newest member of Macho Movie Madness. And we decided to bring Kenny in because he is not only a major cinephile, but also a true blue horror fan, Friday the 13th fan, and more importantly, a Halloween fan. Goes in my favor. So a few years ago, Andrew, Chris, and I did a versus, like I said in the opening, and it didn't go so well. Everybody's like, what the hell? And then we sat on it for a little while and we're like, yeah, that was stupid. We're chicken shits. And those were my words. But look, we're gonna right this wrong. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get a clear-cut winner.
We actually in that video said there will be no ties on this show. And then we had a tie at the end of the show.
Again, don't take anything we ever say seriously. Until right now, and I'm changing that.
Right now.
I mean what I say. There will be no tie. I'm gonna.
If the end of the tie.
If there is somewhat if there's a tie of any kind, we will find another way to end it in this video. I don't care what it is. It is gonna happen. Chris is not with us again, but I've got his picks, so we'll see how that goes. With 4 of us, 5 categories, we're gonna get into it. Halloween 2. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can, just like I was last time, I think. It's been a while since I watched that video. Andrew, I know you're fresher than I am on that. But I'm a Halloween guy, and Halloween 2, admittedly, we did a re-ranking not that long ago, is my favorite sequel. It's my first Halloween movie. It holds a special place in my heart, and I can admit and recognize faults in it. And I'm going to try to do that today if I can, if it comes to it. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't mean I don't love Friday. But.
So let me talk about Halloween 2 a little bit. When we did this last time, I'd seen Halloween 2 twice. We'd done like a Halloween retrospective podcast, and I had to watch 2 through whatever, like 10.
Yeah, I give you a crash course.
Less than a 2-week span.
Yeah.
So it was all fresh, and I've had like 5 years now to digest Halloween, and I appreciate Halloween 2 a whole lot more now than what I did back then. So I've got a whole different perspective as far as how this goes. And I still love Friday too. So this is really, really tough for me. A lot tougher than it was.
I really meant to watch that last one we did too, just to kind of get a refresh of what we did. So you might help us out with that if you think of something. Before we get started, Kenny, you got anything to say about Halloween 2 or Friday the 13th Part 2?
I enjoy both, but again, I love Halloween 2, and I've told you before, the only reason that it's not my favorite Halloween movie is because it wasn't the first. I like it almost as much as the first one, maybe the same. But it is the second one, and so that's why I got it at 2.
It's the same night, same story. It's just what the difference is here is where that one's more of a thriller, and it's a lean thriller. It's a lean horror movie. It's a very sophisticated, I think, at times, not all the time, but a lot of times with the characters. And I mentioned this in a recent review that I did, but it is a sophisticated one. This one it's a slasher movie. Halloween started a trend of this new subgenre of movies, which was the slasher. It's not the first slasher movie, but it started this whole new trend. Holidays, the craze, and Friday the 13th, things were starting to get ramped up. You had Terror Train, I think, by that time. You had Prom Night. You had Friday the 13th. You had all these other knockoffs, and now we have to ramp up. We've got not only a bigger budget, we can do more with it, but we've got to turn this into a slasher, and we got to keep up. And what's ironic about this, I'll say real quick, John Carpenter did not like this movie. This is one of the very few things that I can disagree with John Carpenter about his movies, but he absolutely thinks this is an abomination. I do not think so. but ironically, he's the one that made it this way. Because Rick
Rick
and he reshot it because Rick Rosenthal's original version, which is a little bit more in line with the TV version but different. We'll never get to see that because it doesn't exist, I'm pretty sure. But Rick Rosenthal made it to be more like Halloween. It was slower, it was more methodical, not as much blood, and because of, John Carpenter watched it, didn't think it was scary. Said it was about as scary as an episode of Quincy. That was a quote. So, which is funny, but it's, that's what he said. And so he went in and he reshot it to meet the expectations of what people thought a horror movie and a slasher movie should be. And that's what came out with this movie, and I love it. But it's just ironic and funny that, that he hates it. I think more because of what he wrote with the brother-sister angle, but, I won't get into too much yet. But it's just so funny to me.
What I like about this is it's kind of a vicious cycle. Halloween begat Friday the 13th, and then they saw what happened there, and Halloween 2 is more like a Friday the 13th film.
Yeah,
in a way.
Well,
it's a little more psychological.
It is so funny. It is so funny what birthed these movies. It was Halloween, pretty much, right? Yeah. It wasn't the first, but it was what birthed this craze. It birthed these movies, but then it evolved into the very thing that it swore to defeat. Like it was just Friday the 13th with a white mask, and they weren't any better. The mask never got better, unfortunately, after this movie. But I guess unless anybody's got anything else to say, we want to move into the categories and get this rematch going. Okay, so let's get into it. I'll read off the categories real quick. I think we changed them up right just a little bit this time around, or are they mostly the same, Andrew?
We had 6 categories last time, which is stupid on our part to have an even number of categories. You're just asking for a top.
Yeah.
So,
but now we got an even number of people, so I mean, maybe it won't work out that way. So we'll do story. We're going to do setting, we're going to do acting, we're going to do kills, which is a big one, and then scare factor. And, we kind of touched on lasting appeal and effect and impact at the beginning. We can a little bit more later if we want to, before the end. But, yeah, we're going to start off with story, just like always. Andrew, do you want to take story?
Yeah, I'll take story. And I kind of throw my lasting impact in with the story because they kind of go hand in hand with me. I do love the story of Halloween 2. It's, it's a continuation of the night. I shot him 6 times.
Yeah.
And even though it was 7, but
in 2 it was 7.
Yeah.
In the second one it was 7.
The hospital's great. We'll get into the setting later, but it was kind of a continuation. Friday the 13th, we got a couple of things that I really like about it. First of all, you get that Jason character. That's a major part of this story. He was just spoken about and seen in the last scene of part 1. And he's actually brought to life here masterfully. And then I love how the character of Jenny, she's without a doubt my favorite and probably should be everyone's favorite final girl in the Friday the 13th series. I love how she's studying to be a child psychologist, and she uses Jason's naive love of his mother in the last scene to kind of trick him.
Yeah.
And I think there's some real genius in this plot, would otherwise just be just a straight slasher, horror movie. But that's why. Not saying, there's nothing I don't like about Halloween 2 story. I think it's great. But for those 2 reasons, I have to lean Friday.
I'll go ahead and take the next one. So this might come as a surprise, and I really enjoyed Halloween 2. It's really hard for me, but after sitting on it for just a little bit, I also went Friday for the story. It sounds a little bit maybe sacrilegious for me to say that, but I think, for this, I agree with pretty much everything you said, and it's very, very close for me because I still love Halloween 2, and I still love the story.
Yeah, as do I.
Same night. It's the same night. It's a continuation. It's almost one and the same, right, with the first one. Just not as lean. But I don't know. I had to edge it to that just because Jason was born in this movie. This was the first time we got to see him do his thing.
Yeah.
Well, I went Halloween 2. I do love the fact that in Friday we are introduced to Jason. That's what that whole franchise was built on, and he finally appears, and they did do a good job. even though he doesn't have the hockey mask. You know, he's got the old. Was he wearing like a burlap sack or?
Yeah.
And it was good. But I went with Halloween 2 just for the continuation, like the immediate continuation. That, you know, it's like it didn't stop. And,
that is one thing that I really like. That's one thing that I really respect and like. Not sorry to cut you off, but just the fact that mere seconds, like it's just that's something that you don't see very often in a movie where it's mere seconds after, and it just it does its best to really feel, even though it's a little bit ramped up and you can tell there's a higher budget, it really feels like it's almost the same movie, you know, in the same universe a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there's some times where it doesn't, but I thought they did a really good job really keeping it close. It's the closest than any two Halloween movies has ever felt, especially the new trilogy.
Yes, you know, the brother's hunting sister, and then we don't find that out, you know, until probably like almost in the last take.
Yeah, it's the end.
I think he's in the car with and it was the fear of everybody finding out, like the babysitter at the beginning. She's on the phone, you know, and I felt the terror, you know, in her when she finds out about the killings, and I just I went with Halloween 2.
Chris also went Halloween on this one, so tie. But it's not the end. That's why I'm saying we got 5 categories, but we've got 4 people. I promise you, we're not going to tie today. All right, setting. Kenny, you take setting first.
Again, I went Halloween 2, and I take it all the way back to as being a kid. This movie scared the crap out of me. I thought the hospital was so creepy. It literally made me afraid to even go to a doctor's office.
Yeah,
like that stuff scared me. I just loved how it was dark, even though you're in a hospital. And I've never been in a hospital, I want to say, where there's only been like 5 people working.
I know.
Yeah, that's creepy in itself.
It's almost outlandish a little bit, isn't it?
Yes, and dark, very dark. I've never been in a hospital where it's just dark. I went with the Halloween 2 just because it creeped the shit out of me.
Yeah, I also went Halloween 2. I felt, I'll mention something a little bit later about Friday, but that hopefully doesn't contradict what I'm about to say. But
I have those moments all the time, so feel free.
Okay, we'll figure it out when time comes, I guess. But there, you know, due to the higher budget, they were able to make this small town come alive, and it felt like Halloween. It's one of the very few Halloween movies that feel like a full-fledged Halloween film, like it's on Halloween. You know what I mean? And Kenny, you touched on pretty much everything we all think. That hospital setting, even though it might be a little bit crazy to think that there's 5 people on duty and a security guard, or including the security guard, and then all the lights are off, you know there's other patients there, at least one other patient, but you don't ever see them or hear from them other than one buzzer. So it sounds a little bit preposterous, but it still doesn't make it any less creepier. The lighting is amazing. The town looks amazing. Whatever they did in Pasadena, I think it was North Pasadena or South Pasadena, and just whatever they did there. Dean Cundy came back. You know, he's a master at the cinematography, the lighting. It's never looked. I've never seen it look like another film. Does that make any sense? I've never seen another Halloween film especially look like this. It's just everything brought together is perfect.
But still, even though it's different, it's got John Carpenter's touches all over it.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Even though he didn't direct this movie, he just produced it. It feels like you're looking at a John Carpenter movie.
You're exactly right.
I love that.
I do too. Yeah. And there's something about, you know, in Carpenter, because Carpenter moved into the synthesizer, the electric sound, and there's something about that in this with the organ too, and the theme. It's just I know we're getting away just from setting entirely, but it just that whole package deal. It felt different. It felt more demonic. Like it's kind of like a night where hell came to earth for a minute, and now we're down in hell. Does that make any sense? Like that's what it feels like. And I think that's I don't know. It just Friday, great movie, great setting, there ain't nothing scarier than the woods, man, other than maybe a hospital at 3 a.m. with only 5 people working and a boogeyman. But it's depending on who you are, that some creepy deformed looking dude running around with a burlap sack and
overalls,
like, dude, that made me afraid of the woods. I mean, I was afraid. So
I
kind of picked.
I also chose Halloween. You can't beat Halloween in the set.
No.
As much as I love Friday, that's a really cool camp. The scene where Jason's chasing her through the woods and she finds his shack, that's so creepy and atmospheric as well.
I think so too.
I think this is one of the best camps. I think you could throw 3 and probably the 2 houses and 4 in there. But yeah, it can't compete with Friday. It's too good.
Yeah, and Chris also. So this was a solid win for Halloween. Chris also chose Halloween.
Yeah. Did I say Friday? I meant Halloween.
You said.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Oh yeah, I knew what you meant. I was already zoned out, ready for the next one, but I knew what you were talking about. So acting. I guess I'll take acting. I chose Halloween 2. I don't think the acting in Friday 2 is bad. I don't think the characters were bad. Like you said, the Final Girl's great. If we were doing Final Girl, I would give it to Friday, because and I love Laurie. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, but it's not the same Jamie Lee Curtis from the first one. She's hurt. She's underutilized. She's kind of pretty much not there until the very end. Now, when she did come in, she was great, but nothing like Jenny. Like Jenny in this film was done properly. And I thought the acting was great. Some of the lines were cringe, but you're going to get that in these movies no matter what. Yeah. But overall, I think with Halloween 2, even you have some of those cringy characters, some of those cringy lines, it's still charming. It's still lovable. Mrs. Alves was a tough head nurse. Did great for what little she was in it. Had a shitty death. We'll get into that later. But yes. all the supporting characters, I liked every one of them. Janet, Jill, I liked Bud. But Jimmy was great. Bud was great. Bud might have been a sleazeball and might have been a little bit cringy, but that's one of those characters, man, you just grow to love the more you watch the movie. Dr. Loomis starting to get crazier here, and I love it. This is like the perfect level.
Do the line about the wake. I want to hear you do it.
They come up on the house and they're trashing the Myers house, and he's like, Deputy Hunt's like, what the hell? And he's like, oh, one of the tribe was butchered. This is a wake. like no one knows what that means. Like, what does that even mean? What does that have to do with anything? What are you talking about? Yeah, what are you talking about? But I love it. Or how about the end where he's like, yeah, get out now. Like, who said the way he says get out now? Get out now.
Get away from him.
Yeah, get away from him. Did he stop breathing? I said, man, there's a good meme on that.
He's not breathing now.
Yeah. What's the word? I saw a meme not too long ago. I absolutely lost my shit. It was so funny. It was the top was Mr. Or the marshal, and he's like, what do I got to lose except for my job? And then the end was him getting his throat slit and his tongue out. Like it's so great. You lost more than your job, bud.
Yep.
Yeah. No, great. I think even the crazy, it's just great acting, man.
It's really close for me. I went Halloween.
Okay.
Can't beat Donald Pleasance just for the reasons I had you do that there. I think, like you said, I think Jenny's better as a character than Laurie in this movie. Paul's okay. You've got the two sets of lovers in Friday the 13th, with Mark and Vicky and Jeff and Sandra, and I really like them.
Yeah.
But they give them a little bit to do, but not too terribly much. The last 5 years, I've grown to appreciate the characters. Like, I just watched our review from 5 years ago last night, and I talked about how I did not like the character of Bud at all. But that's the point. I'm not supposed to like the character of Bud.
Yeah.
He's a slime ball, and him and Nurse Karen, and I'd kind of put them in the same category as those other actors. Nurse Jill I really liked. Mrs. Alves I really liked. Sheriff Brackett and his deputy Gary. I like. He doesn't have a lot, but I like that line when he comes up to tell him that Annie's dead, and how that's acted.
Yeah, it's acted depending on who you are. It's acted pretty. It could be really rough. Like one of them was Annie. That was.
Yeah, I liked it personally.
I did too. I like it. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, he's not Donald Pleasance, and he did all right.
But
I like the cameo from Dick Warlock, by the way, in that scene.
Yeah,
he was the cop, the driver that hit poor Benjamin Tramer.
Poor Ben Tramer.
Yeah.
Kenny, you'll find out we're big proponents of Dick Warlock cameos on this channel.
Yeah, he's a Dick Warlock.
I have grown to really appreciate Halloween 2, and there's just a little bit more acting in it for me to put it over Friday. Even though I love Jenny as that final girl, even the killers. I like Dick Warlock as Michael Myers. I almost like him as much as Nick Castle if he just walk a little bit faster. But
exactly.
I like Steve Dash, who played. There was 2 different Jasons in this movie. One, I can't think of his name. He's there for the money shot at the end where he comes through the window. Yeah. And Steve Dash played him the rest of the time. Rest in peace. With the bag over his head, and I like his how he acted in this movie. There's times where he's begging off like Ric Flair when she's got the chainsaw in the cabin. I'm like, I've never seen that from Jason Voorhees before. He was still very much a little bit of emotion.
Yeah, he was still very much a lot like a human being. In this, so it's a little bit different.
But as much as I like that, I still had to give it to Halloween.
Kenny, what did you say?
I went with Halloween. And I kind of like what you guys were saying. I mean, if we were going final girl, Jenny, definitely.
Yeah.
But Bud's a D-bag.
Yes.
But he's kind of likable at the same time. I mean, I enjoyed him dying. If that
you gotta like the guy who likes pie as much as Bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. And I really liked Jimmy. And I thought Jimmy was a sweet character. They had total exact opposite of Bud.
Yeah, it's like you guys watch The Office. It was like it's like Bud was Todd Packard and Jimmy was Jim Halpert. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, and Loomis. Loomis is the big, the deciding factor for me.
Yeah.
And you touched on that, Brandon. He does. You start to see him
really get crazy.
He starts to get crazy, and he gets crazier, in through the 5th one.
Yeah.
You got Paul though, who is quite the hunk. You compare Paul to Jimmy. You know what I mean? Paul, big lumberjack dude. Got the blonde hair.
You don't get many hunks in the Halloween franchise. You just don't.
No, you do not.
They're definitely about as plain as they come.
Michael's the only hunk in Halloween.
That's right.
Yeah.
You won't stand for anything less.
What I said earlier,
I will say.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Andrew.
While he was on the subject of Paul, we was talking about going against your point, and I said, "Don't worry, I do that all the time." And I chose Halloween. Paul's speech, the campfire scene at the beginning of Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Yes,
that's awesome.
That's
amazing.
Kenny actually was texting me that earlier. I don't want to scare you guys or anything, but
he says, I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
Yeah, I love it.
And he's looking around at everybody all serious.
That's such a good scene and so well acted by everybody around that fire. I love it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, no surprise, Chris also chose Halloween 2. So we got Halloween 2 with 2 points, and the first one, the story was a tie, so it's a wash. We're washing that. So it comes down to these last two. Friday's got a chance to tie it up, but we're not gonna let that happen. We're not gonna let this happen. We gotta figure out a winner.
We'll come up with something.
Okay, so the kills.
Can I jump in?
Go right ahead.
Go for it.
I went Friday
Wow.
on kills. And I'm going Friday just for the simple fact that poor Mark. If you're going to kill the guy in the wheelchair, you're going to kill the handicapped guy.
Yeah.
With the machete
He was about to get
across the face.
Yeah.
Which was one of the best kills in the Friday franchise to me. The sound it made when it went into his head. It was. And I'll tell you what didn't. It was the lack of on-screen kills in Halloween 2 for me. There were so many off-screen kills, and I didn't appreciate that. The doctor was killed off-screen. The nurse.
Nurse Al's. Yeah.
Yeah, killed off-screen. I went with Friday on that. I thought the kills were a little more brutal. When you guys finish, I want to touch on some similarities in these two movies. But
okay,
one of you guys jump in here.
Well, I'll give you Chris's picks. I think looks like he chose Halloween 2. Andrew, what did you say?
I actually said tie.
Oh, really?
Before I said Friday. And there's some good kills. The one Kenny was talking about is hilarious and brutal at the same time. The double penetration kill through the bed is on Jeff and Sandra is amazing. The kill where the guy's caught up in the snare and he gets him with the machete. Even though he gets him with the dull edge of the machete, which makes no sense whatsoever.
I know. Yeah, I was going to mention
Right.
that.
It's still a good kill. I like the kill of Jason in this movie. The kill of Jason in this movie. I like that. But on the Halloween side, there was several things I liked. I liked the very end of the movie with Dr. Loomis and Michael. I mean, those are technically kills, I guess. You know,
You call them
the ultimate
kills, yeah.
the ultimate sacrifice, you know, to take him out. I really like that. The hammer in the head. It's done in both movies, but I think it's done probably a little better Friday or in Halloween. Ring, you know.
Oh yeah, that's one. Yeah, ring. Yeah, whatever.
Ben Tramer's death is brutal. Like, dummy or not, like when you go back and watch that, that's so as much as I want to pick Friday because they're probably a little more creative, to me they're kind of a wash. So I had to say tie.
Well, then I guess I'm the tiebreaker then. So this is really hard for me because when you really look at it objectively and you look at these kills, Kenny makes some really good points here. Killing the cripple guy, man, holy crap, it's a crappled, you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that, brother, you know. Oh no, baby, what is you doing? That's that was probably, I agree, that's probably one of the most shocking and one of the better kills. Him, you know, just rolling, you know, they did the freeze frame thing, which that's a really old classic. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but you don't see the aftermath of it. I understand why you probably couldn't. It would look ridiculous. But him getting that machete in the face and watching his hands kind of squirm and then just rolling back down the stairs, that was wild, man. That was wild. The double penetration spear was good. You know, you guys been talking about a lot of good kills, a lot of good points here. There was some off-screen deaths in Halloween 2 that I wasn't happy about, but you know, the aftermath of seeing Dr. Mixter with that needle in the eye was pretty cool. And what we got to see after that with Janet, where, you know, you had that another good shot 2 movies in a row of him coming out of the shadows, that dimmer, you know, and then sticking that needle in her temple. Very, very good kill. Not gruesome, but kind of gruesome. Like, it's unique enough to where, I'm already scared of needles anyway, or, you know, was when I was a kid. So it's like, ugh. Karen in the, you know, you got to see Booby, that's great, but Karen dying in the hot tub's pretty gruesome. Bud was a little lackluster, but you know, he went kind of in a funny way. Maybe he deserved that as that character.
Yeah.
I think the one that stuck out to me the most as a kid that really messed me up the first time I watched it was poor Alice. Like, at the beginning, she getting that knife to the chest, man, him coming through the front door, and she's like, who is it? And he just sprung up real quick out of the corner and stabbed her, and the blood splattered up into her chin. And I was like, as a kid, I'm like, oh God, that was kind of twisty. Like that messed with me a little bit. Along with the Janet kill with the syringe in the temple. I think I'm gonna have to go with Halloween 2, and only because of how I felt when I saw it the first time. If that makes any sense. I think just what it does to me, and I think Kenny, I think you make good points with Friday's really close, because I was leaning towards Friday, and then I thought, those 2 kills really messed me up.
One we didn't mention. One we didn't mention was Nurse Jill taking it in the back and the clogs.
Oh yes, thank you. I thought of that earlier and I forgot. Yes, thank you.
I blanked on that when I was going through. I was totally blanking when I was giving my reasons for choosing how.
That's probably the visually best one in the movie.
The most iconic kill.
That's the poster of the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the shoving the scalpel, him strong enough to lift her up, the clogs fall.
Yeah, don't sleep on Michael's shoulder strength.
Exactly. He don't look like much, but he.
Yeah. That dude is strict pressing 315 at least.
For sure.
Strong.
Yeah.
He could have held Sully over the cliff like John Matrix in Commando.
He could have done it just fine. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I'm glad you mentioned that. So that just kind of solidifies my answer even more. Yeah, there's some good kills on Friday that make me like, man, it's close. But yeah, after those 3 kills, that changes things a little bit. So
yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to jump into these similarities before we moved on.
Okay,
go for it.
This being both movies are the second movies in the franchise.
Yes.
And there are 3 sets of kills that are the exact same in both sequels. So you got 2 officers both taking a claw hammer to the head.
Yeah.
You have two people getting garroted to death. Crazy Ralph in Friday
Crazy Ralph
against the tree, and Bud.
Yeah, and Bud. Yeah, that's true.
And then you also have 2. I don't even know what you'd call that. Alice takes the ice pick through the temple. It comes out her nose.
Oh, yeah. So you got syringe versus ice pick, but still similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Both released in 1981.
I thought that was pretty crazy.
Too. Both released in 1981 as well. Like there's a lot of crazy.
It's like they were trying to steal from each other.
Yeah. It's like the Monday Night Wars again.
Yeah.
You had,
right.
And before we move
Sean
on,
Waltman was going and telling somebody something.
Before we move on from kills, I'd heard you guys talk about Mrs. Alves, off screen. I like them coming into the aftermath of that and that visual.
Yes.
All the blood on the floor, and Jimmy being taken. Yeah, Jimmy being taken out by that and being a non-factor for the rest of the movie. That's kind of interesting how they did that.
Yeah, and then we never got an official word. If you want to talk about the TV version, the original version that they shot, the other ending, he woke up in the ambulance with Lori, and you never see him die. You could say he succumbed in the car to his concussion, or he just passed out again. But they never showed him again. Never a little bit definite. And then you got your lore of what's presumed to be Jamie Lloyd's father. I don't think we ever got Jimmy's last name, did we? It might be Jimmy Lloyd. That's what I think people are saying, but
it wasn't Ben Tramer.
It definitely wasn't Ben Tramer.
It was not Ben Tramer. And I don't believe Jimmy's dead. I believe Jimmy was. I count that as passed out. I didn't count that as
I agree.
Dead.
Yeah, that's what I think. And I kind of always look at it like Jimmy was Jamie Lloyd's father, and that's the way it was. Well, we're going into the last category here, guys. And I think we are going to have a winner this time for sure. Scare factor, though. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Andrew, what do you got for scare factor?
So Halloween's frightening, more for the setting and everything. Michael's plenty scary. I went Friday. I I think there's enough going on there, especially the last 20 minutes of the movie where it's just Jenny. Paul's been taken care of somewhat, and it's just Jenny and Michael, and he's chasing her through the woods. There's a scene where he's climbing on top of the car. And, sorry, Jason.
See, we're turning him, Kenny. We're turning him. He's gonna be a Halloween fan.
Yeah. But we'll do this again in 5 years.
That's right.
When Jason's crawling all over the car and popping up, and he's chasing her through buildings. There's a scene where Jenny literally pisses herself underneath the bed.
Yes.
And
that was a good scene. I thought that was.
Yeah. To me, there's just enough. Halloween 2 scary. To me, like if I was to see this as a kid, to me Friday would probably be a little bit more scary. Seeing him as an adult, I got to look at it kind of maybe from that perspective. What would frighten me most when I was, But anyway, so yeah, that's why I gave it to Friday.
I gave it to Friday, which, like I said, I was going to contradict myself here earlier, but because, I talked about how scary the hospital was. But I don't think hospitals are scary as an adult, especially you get closer to death as an adult. No one wants to be in a hospital or doctor's office. I think even from a young age, it's a weird feeling. It's weird smells. One place you're going to be, especially all of us growing up in a rural area like this, you're always going to be in the woods. You're always going to be around some woods. You're going to find some wood. You know what I mean? It's kind of a tough call because I think that particular hospital in that particular setting is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. It's one of the scariest things I've ever watched as a kid with what was in that hospital lurking in the shadows. It was the mood, it was the lighting, it was the sound, it was Michael that made that scary, not the hospital. The woods is a little different. Woods you can get lost in for days. Maybe not these woods, but you can get lost in the woods for days. And there's more than just a Jason in the woods. So, I don't know, it's a little more realistic to have somebody in the woods tracking you down, or the dangers and the loneliness and the coldness of the woods, than there is a hospital where we talked about earlier. It's never going to have just 5 people and no lights on. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it is scary for a movie, but if you really sit down and think about it, the woods, a lake, and some madman running around, which who knows if that's happening right now 5 miles from my house. Like,
and those are his woods, and those kids are coming there for basically summer vacation. They don't know what they're getting at.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I hope I wasn't contradicting myself on that whole thing, but there's a reason why the setting is great in Halloween. There's a reason why it's scary, but I think just when you really think about the overall package of Friday and the woods and what makes Friday work so well, beyond Jason, it's a big deal. That's why I picked it. And Chris picked it for pretty much the same reason, actually. It's the only category he gave Friday to.
Oh, wow.
So, Kenny, what did you say for scare factor?
So, growing up, the Halloween movies, they always scared me more. Michael scared me more than Jason, especially as I got a little older, because Michael was a man. That could have been Andrew, it could have been you. He was a man. Mm-hmm. And as I got older, I come to realize that Jason can't exist. Same as Freddy. That could never be real. So it didn't frighten me as much. But we're talking now, when I seen these movies, they both scared, they just scared the hell out of me. For one, I lived in town my whole life growing up. I never lived out of town until, in the last 6 years. That's why another reason the Halloween movies scared me so much was, because I lived in towns with streets and neighbors. And
he was taking it to the streets. He wouldn't let that stop him. Yeah. No.
And, but also, spent a lot of time at 2 of my best friends' house, and they both live way out in BFE. So I was always scared of the woods, because of Jason, watching those movies. And I had to go with Friday just because of even now, I'll be 40 in, like 6 weeks. And I'm not, I don't want to go trekking through the woods by myself. Even though I know there's no Jason, there's always the thought of, Jason could pop up from behind that tree, even though, he's not going to. But, I had to go with Friday.
Well, we've got a winner. Obviously, I think for a little bit now, but that Halloween 2 takes it. We're no more ties. We have got true, definite winner. I can't say I'm upset at it, Andrew. I agree. Like it's a better film. It's a better movie, all around. But that's probably my bias talking.
I've really come around to it over the last, especially couple years.
Yeah,
it's.
I think there's stronger
I will
Friday
admit,
films.
Yeah, it's one of the stronger. Probably this or 4, or sometimes 6, but this or 4 is the one people talk about as the top Friday. But this to me still just narrowly edges it out. It's just so good.
I think we can close up shop. Hopefully everybody will be satisfied with this. Sound off in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know if we did you dirty again. I know we didn't do everybody as dirty as last time and just try and chicken out.
No.
But I think this was a fair fight, and I think we had some reasonable arguments. And I think I think that Halloween 2 doesn't get near as much love anymore as I thought it did. It's not one of the stronger I guess entries in the franchise for a lot of people, and I don't know why. So I don't need to think about that.
Makes no sense.
So I went back and watched our original verses, and I said at the time it was like my 4th favorite Halloween movie. This one's, and I like Halloween 3 a lot too, just because it's so different.
Yeah.
But this one is right neck and neck with the original Halloween for me, just because it's got a little bit more of a Friday the 13th feel.
Yeah.
And
it kind of gives the best of both worlds. Yeah.
It's more easily digestible.
It is. It's a good 1-2 punch too for those who like thriller and slasher. You've got 1 and you got 2, and you've got a little bit of both, and I think it's a good balance, especially for those who love that Halloween 1 and 2 timeline the most and just kind of stick with those, or even the H2O timeline where it's just that one and then 2 and then 1, 2 and H2O. So.
And if you're gonna sit down, for somebody that's new, if they're gonna sit down and watch Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 back to back, what's so good about it is it really ramps up.
Yes.
Like when you come out of that first one, I mean, it builds and it goes.
Well, and one last thing I'll say is that if you wanted to end right there, it's got a perfect ending.
Yep.
Yes.
Really. The hero goes out sacrificing himself to save the rest of the town and save the final girl, who's obviously hurt and weakened, and he takes out the boogeyman that he never really let out, but he was blamed for letting out, and it's a perfect way to go out on a franchise.
Maybe sometimes looking at what they've done with the franchise now, I try to envision a world where maybe there was just only the first and second. We wouldn't have had to deal with the shit we've been fed.
The Thorn trilogy.
I think as I think as a long-standing Halloween fan, I would always want there to be a movie and a franchise and a Michael Myers, no matter what, good or bad, and I've stuck with it no matter what. But if it never happened, then we wouldn't be thinking about this. We wouldn't be talking about it today the same way. But it might have meant more. I guess that's it for the verses today. We've got Halloween 2's our winner. I don't think anybody can be too mad about it anymore. And we will be coming up with another versus or 2 in the very near future. And we will be letting you guys know. I think we're going to have a couple cool ones lined up. And Kenny, I'm sure if you're willing, you can come back whenever. You're part of the crew now. So.
Oh yeah, I had a great time.
We will let you all know very soon what we're going to be doing next, and sound off in the comments below. Let us know what you think of the video. Hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let us know what you think about Friday 2 versus Halloween 2. Let us know who your winner is, and we'll see y'all next time.